So impressed with you people. You've been here hour after hour and you're still so positive and working hard. Wow, you guys are great. You guys are amazing. I want to take you back to Norway, all of you. I want you to be in my church. Incredible. Okay, let's look back a little bit. Summarize up what we've done today. Remember, the goal with this day, in this session, is the missional life. Right? How can we get every person in our fellowship, in our church, in our family, to live the missional life? So they know that that's what they are, that defines them. Not just when they come to the gatherings on church services on Sunday or the life groups on Wednesdays, but it's like every day, that's who we are, that's what we do. That just tells us, describes us. We're missional, right? That's the goal of this, getting there. We've talked about how to get there, right? We share some principles from Luke 10. Lee did an amazing job of talking about, how we are sent, how we're sent together with others, how we're sent to the persons of peace, and how these questions, who we're sent together with, can really get our church focused in the right direction. After we talked about some of the very practical, the practices we have. We can live missionally by showing goodness, by using the power of God, healing and prophetic words, to using our words to others. Okay? But the question is, how do we get from the practices to the lifestyle? That's a challenge, right? One way he was talking about is discipleship, right? Making disciples defines who we are, how we live our lives. We want to give you one more tool now, before we go up to making the plans. The question is, how do we get from the practices or activities to a lifestyle? The lifestyle, the way we live our lives that is missional. And the word here I want to share with you is culture. What is a culture? It can be defined in many ways, but here I'm talking about a culture in a group, in a church, in a cell group or a life group, whatever you call it, a missional community. The culture tells who we are, how we live our lives. The culture is just the way we do things at our place. You don't think about a culture. A culture isn't something we decide to do on Sunday. A culture is something that always happens every time we come together. You guys have an amazing family culture in this church, right? When I come in here, I just feel family. People are friendly, they're talking to each other, you can see the way they're treating each other, lifting each other up, right? They're sharing things, they're praying and blessing each other. You guys have like a culture of family here. So when someone walks into this church, they feel something, they taste something. Something special here. What is it, right? And maybe they will call it family, maybe they'll call it something else, but it's the feeling of being included in a group of people that really sees you and includes you, right? You've built up that culture for many years. You don't have to talk about it and tell people to be a family, do you? You are a family. You just live your lives like that, okay? Now, not every church will be like that. Some churches you walk in, you see they have this amazing worship. That's just, it's the great church services. And they got teaching that'll knock your socks off, the truth, right? But the family is the strongest. They'll have other things that are strong in their church, okay? So each time we come into a new place, we'll kind of get a feeling, what's it like here? What's it smell like, right? What does it feel like to be in this group of people? And that's the culture, okay? So the idea is, how do we build a culture? How do we love a culture into being? How do we cultivate a culture, a missional culture in our churches? We can have strategies, and we can make plans, but you'll probably notice that when we try to bring something new into the church, we'll have a focus on it for a while, we'll do something, and then have a plan, and then we'll go over to something else, and that will just kind of often fall apart. It'll last for a while, but it'll disappear. They say sometimes that culture eats strategy for lunch, right? You can plan all the strategies you want to, you can do things, but if you don't really make it a habit, a lifestyle, then the culture will win in the end. It'll go back to the old culture, the way things used to be. In our church, at Amy, we've tried this many times. We've tried lots of projects and missional things that have lasted a while, but they haven't really taken hold of us. We've learned something through this Agenda 1 process. We've learned a process, simple steps for how to build a culture that will really last. I got these 3 circles here. Now it's a different 3 circles than it was last time, right? That's a terrible 3 circles. I'm sorry, it's late in the day. Excuse me. You have a culture of honor? Oh, thank you. A culture of artistry. No, okay. It starts with the thoughts. This kind of comes back to the why, right? If we're going to build a culture, we have to decide what culture we're going to do. We have to have a mindset change, right? Metanoia, right? Be renewed. Things always start up here, okay? Be renewed. What's the word in the verse in English? By the renewing. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. There we go, okay? So if we're going to have a new culture, if we want to build a culture in our church, we have to get this. We have to have faith. We have to believe it. We have to see it. We have to decide this is what we're going to build. In our church, I mentioned this, we started this goodness. We wanted to have a culture of goodness, or a culture of kindness in our church, maybe you could say. A culture where people really love their neighbors as themselves. Where we got people out and started living around the neighborhoods and doing good things for others. We thought this would be a really good missional culture, just to do good things for people. So this was, of course, based on the Word of God, of loving your neighbor, of the fact that it said that Jesus went around and did good to others, that, show your goodness and mercy. The Bible is full of encouragement to live out goodness in our lives. We thought, okay, this is what we want. We thought about it, planned it. The next thing we had to have was the language, or the words, it says here. How are we going to define this? We chose a word in Norwegian called godhet, which is a really good word. It just sounds good. It tastes good. We say it a lot. It doesn't really translate so well, goodness or kindness, but you can say kindness, okay? A culture of kindness. So we decided to start talking about this kindness. We're going to preach about it, talk about it, have it in our newsletters, on the webpage, all the time, again and again and again. We're going to build this culture now. We started preaching about it, finding the words in the Bible that describe what we want to do. We started sharing, lots of different perspectives. We talked about it a lot, so we found the right words that would define the culture. The third thing was the practices. What are the simple practices that everyone can do that we can make as a habit afterwards? Where we're going to see the concrete, way we do this. So we started talking about, Martin would say, when you go to work, take 2 pieces of fruit, right? One for your neighbor and one for you. Like I shared before. You say this again and again. We talk about when you go to the store and someone in front of you doesn't have enough money to pay, you just pay for them, right? Or just finding practical ways to help people. We had this big, I told you, the week of goodness, where we went out and helped people with their yards, right? The garden around their house. We helped people with fixing their houses. We helped people with fixing their cars. We washed cars for people. Everyone in Norway has a car. So we did a lot of things, or practices. We talked about them. We shared the testimony about them. Lots of testimonies. We did this again and again and again and again. Some people say if you do something for 40 days, it will become a habit. Other people say 3 weeks or whatever. But the point is, how can we do something long enough so it becomes a habit? It's just the way we do it. Like brushing my teeth. I never think about brushing my teeth. I just do it because it's a habit, right? A lot of things in our life are habits. They're good. There's good habits, and there's habits that aren't so good, right? You know how hard it is to break a habit too? What is part of us? What is our culture? It's just who we are. We just do it automatically. So how can we get this mission in life to happen just automatically? How can we do it just like it's a family, right? So just living on mission will be what we do. It just happens. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to tell people. You don't have to plan it and do a project. It just happens, right? What are some of the missional cultures we have? Well, goodness is one of them, right? The idea that we just help people whenever we can. We see somebody with a need. Okay, how are we going to help them? We don't think should we or shouldn't we, but how can we do it? We just do it automatically. We can talk about the culture of healing, like I talked about before, right? Praying for people. When you see someone who's sick, we just pray for them. That's what we do in our church, right? Whenever someone comes in who's sick, we pray for them. We heal them. Out on the streets, it's just something we do. And of course, you have to do that an awful long time. You have to train people, practice it, tell testimonies, have the words again and again and again until it becomes something automatic. How about the culture of an inclusive culture, a family culture, inviting people into the family, come and be part of us, right? That's something you have in your church too. Whenever you get together, it's open for others. If it's an open door culture, right, an open culture, people are always welcome. There's always room for one more. Whenever we get together in our life groups or whenever we have dinner or whenever we go, there's always room for one more. You know, that kind of culture there, it's kind of the family on mission culture. Always knowing that whenever we get together, we want to include somebody else. Testimony culture, where everyone knows they can share their testimony in a way that will help others to see who Jesus is, right? The prophetic culture, what you're doing now, this culture of praying for the people. Now you see, you've done this, Tay, haven't you? You've done this, written the cards, and been doing it now for several months. So now what's happened? So when people eat, they remember to pray for these people on the card. So you decided, okay, what are you gonna do? We want to let God lead us to show us who we're sent to. So you talked about it, you made a practice of the card, and everyone starts doing it again and again and again. And now it's a habit, you see? Maybe that's a good culture for someone else to build in their church. Praying for people is a good culture. Okay, so you see there's lots of different kinds of things we can do, specific cultures we can build in our church so that mission will be a lifestyle, something we just do. You understand this? Any questions? Add something? Yeah. Some cultures can be very large. We can talk about a family culture. We can also have very specific cultures. Like I'm sure you've talked about the culture of honor in this church, right? What does it mean to have a culture of honor? It means that we lift other people up before us, right? We add value to other people. We find the gold in the people. We speak it out. We let other people hear that they're valuable, that we see something good in them, right? We lift people up. So that's the kind of culture you talk about. We feel this is something God's leading us to. So you find the words for it. You say the culture of honor. You probably said that here in your church a few thousand times, right? You talk about it a lot, and then you do it. This is what it looks like to have a culture of honor, right? And you teach about it, you share the testimonies, you do it, more testimonies, do it again. You have it in the small groups, at the church service, everyday life, and pretty soon you've got a culture. Now cultures need to be kept up. You can probably see in your church there's some culture we have already, we'd like to strengthen them. Maybe there's a culture we have right now that we don't like, right? A negative culture in our church, right? A culture of entertainment, okay? A culture of being overfed. Procrastination, right? So how can we find a culture that will be the opposite of that we can build up? You see? What I want you to do now is to think, because look back a bit now, today. Some of the ideas you've had. What do we want to see happening in our church? What's the life, what kind of life do we want to see in our church? People living out mission everyday lives, knowing who they're sent to. Knowing who they're sent together with. What kind of practice do we dream about seeing in our church, of things happening? With the goodness or with the power, or with the words. Let's go to our groups now and spend a few minutes talking about what kind of cultures could we build in our church.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How can you?
Yeah.
Is it alright
to do like a lot of practices, to implement lots of practices at the same time, or is it wise to do it one at a time?
Yeah.
Wait until it's established first before you introduce another practice? Or is it okay to do like two practices, introduce a two practice and then, or what's your take on that?
Well, I think as long as the practices are very similar and very much, towards the same goal, it's okay to have more than one practice. I mean, if you're talking about the culture of healing, there's one specific practice everyone's going to do, right? Everyone knows how to pray for the sick, right? You got to train them all. The kids, the youth, adults, everyone has to know how to pray for the sick. This is how we do it. We practice it again and again. Every Sunday in the service, ask people to stand up if they're sick, and we pray for them, right? This is how we do it in our church. Right? If you're talking about like the culture of honor, for instance, there might be different kinds of practices, right? You want to find that we go in the same direction. But I think it's important, if you're going to build a culture, you need to have one culture and look at it for a long period of time. Talk about it till people are tired of hearing about it. You have to preach about that again? We already know that. You preached about that last Sunday and the Sunday before. This is the 7th Sunday in a row you're preaching on the same thing. Can we preach on something new soon? You see, when you start hearing those kind of comments, you know you're succeeding, okay? Because you're repeating enough so people really get it. There's no doubt that we understand this now, okay? But of course, it's not just the words, it's actually doing it. This is when you know you got the culture, when people do it automatically, right? And we just pray for the sick every time. Of course, we pray for the sick in our church, okay? Pretty soon we're going to start our plans for the next time. So I would like to challenge you to think, is there one culture in our church we'd like to build in the next 6 months? Try to be specific now. Don't just say a missional culture. That's very broad, right? But is there one culture when it comes to helping our people to live out a missional life that we'd like to see in our church? One thing we would like to have is a habit that everyone does all the time, okay? Probably something you already do in your church. You're taking it from a practice to a lifestyle. What are some of the things you're seeing right now in your church that really are good? You like it, but you'd like to see more of it, right? What's happening now that people are excited about, they're sharing their testimonies about, and you want to see everyone doing the same thing? What could that be? Let's talk about that in the groups, okay? Is there a missional culture we'd like to build or strengthen in the next 6 months, to focus on, to take this and bring it up from the place of being just a practice we do every now and then, to be the lifestyle of our church? Okay? Let's take about 15 minutes for that. After that, we're going to start working on the plans. Okay? No reports afterwards.